The wind swept across the snowy plains like a cold whisper carrying 100 untold stories, and the old stagecoach groaned as it rolled to a slow halt on the frozen dirt road stretching endlessly toward the horizon. Steam puffed from the horses' noses, rising like ghosts into the pale winter sky. Cole Harrington, one of the wealthiest ranchers in the territory, stood waiting beside his saddle horse, his tall frame wrapped in a dark coat, hat pulled low over eyes that had seen more storms, both in the sky and in life, than any man should. He wasn't a man easily shaken, wasn't a man who wasted time on dreams or doubts. But today, for the first time in a long while, a strange uneasiness tugged at his chest. The coach door creaked open, and when the woman stepped out, the entire world seemed to pause for a single breath. She wore a long black dress that brushed the snow, a black shawl tight around her shoulders, and gloves that looked too thin for the harsh cold. In her right hand she held a worn, brown suitcase with metal studs along the edges, her only possession, from the looks of it. Her left hand steadied herself against the coach as she stepped down, the icy ground crunching beneath her boot. Cole had expected someone timid, someone desperate, someone grateful he'd bothered to send for her at all. That's what mail-order brides usually were, women with nowhere to go, nobody left, nothing to lose. But this woman was not what he'd imagined, not even close. She lifted her chin, meeting his gaze head-on, her eyes cold but burning with something he couldn't name: pain, strength, secrets. All three, maybe. Snowflakes clung to her auburn hair, pinned neatly beneath a dark veil, and even though the winter wind cut like knives, she didn't tremble. Not once. Cole stepped forward, extending a gloved hand, the gentlemanly gesture coming out of him automatically, though he wasn't a man known for softness. "Evelyn Hart?" he asked. She looked at his hand but didn't take it. Instead, she nodded once, slow and deliberate. "Mr. Harrington." Her voice was low, calm, and steady as ice. Cole cleared his throat, lowering his hand awkwardly. Something about her made him forget the usual script: "Welcome to my ranch, I'll provide for you, you'll have a roof and food and safety." Words he had rehearsed on the long ride here. Words that now felt stupid. Insufficient. The ranch hands in the distance pretended not to stare, but he knew they were watching. He knew tomorrow half the town would talk. No one else wanted her, they would whisper. He bought a bride like cattle. Bet she's hiding something. Bet he is too. Cole didn't care about talk. He never had. But standing in front of Evelyn Hart, he felt something tighten in his chest, an instinct telling him this woman wasn't just carrying luggage, she was carrying storms. And he had just tied himself to them. "Let me take your suitcase," he offered again. Evelyn's grip on the handle tightened ever so slightly, and she shook her head. "I can manage." Cole studied her for a beat, then motioned toward his horse and wagon hitched to it. "It's a long ride to the ranch." "So I've been told," she replied quietly, stepping past him with a grace that didn't match the rough, lonely landscape around them. They rode in silence at first, the wagon wheels creaking over frozen mud. Evelyn kept her gaze fixed on the open plains, but Cole found himself studying her from the corner of his eye. Every inch of her looked like it had endured battles without ever lifting a weapon. He couldn't recall the last time he'd seen someone with eyes that tired, or a spine that straight. "You're not what I expected," he finally said, unable to keep the thought from slipping out. Evelyn didn't look at him. Nobody ever is. The answer struck him deeper than he expected. The cold wind bit at his face, but the chill he felt came from somewhere else, somewhere closer to his heart. Hours passed, the sun climbing and falling behind clouds heavy with more snow. When they finally reached the ranch, the wooden building stood quiet under a blanket of frost. Smoke curled from the chimney of the main house, and horses shifted in the corral, snorting at newcomers. The ranch hands paused in their work to watch the wagon roll in. Murmurs floated through the cold air, low, curious, judgmental. Cole ignored them. But Evelyn, her jaw tightened. Her eyes hardened. She'd heard every whisper even if no one had spoken loudly. Cole helped her down, and this time she accepted his hand only because the ground was slippery, not because she needed support. When her feet touched the snow, she stood tall again, unbending. Inside, the house was warm, lit by the fireplace's soft glow. Evelyn stepped inside slowly, as though entering a world she didn't trust yet. Cole removed his gloves, watching her eyes scan the room, taking in everything: the wooden table, the modest shelves, the single rocking chair near the fire, and the long hallway that led to the bedrooms. "It's not much," he said honestly, "but it's safe. And it's yours now." Evelyn's gaze stopped at the fire, flames reflecting in her eyes. "I've never had anything that was mine," she murmured, almost so quietly that Cole wondered if she meant for him to hear it. He stepped closer, unsure why he felt the urge to reassure her. "Well, you do now." Evelyn turned toward him slowly, and for the first time since he'd met her, her face softened, not a smile, not warmth, but something loosening. Cracking. "Mr. Harrington," she said. "Cole," he corrected. She hesitated. "Cole, you should know something before we go any further." His heartbeat quickened. "What?" Evelyn looked down at her gloved hands, then back up at him. Her voice trembled, just a little. "You didn't just buy a bride no one wanted. You bought a woman with a past." Cole swallowed. "Everyone has a past." "Not like mine," she whispered. "And when you learn the truth, you might regret ever bringing me here." Her words hit him like a blow. But before he could respond, she lifted her suitcase and walked toward the spare room, leaving Cole standing by the fire, his pulse loud in his ears and a heavy, unsettling truth settling into his bones. He hadn't just brought a stranger into his home. He had brought a story. A dangerous one. A story that was now tied to his life in ways neither of them yet understood. The storm outside had stopped. But the real storm had only just begun. The morning sun rose reluctantly behind thick winter clouds, casting a pale silver wash over the Harrington ranch as Evelyn stepped out into the cold air, her shawl tightened around her shoulders, her breath forming delicate ghosts in front of her lips. Cole watched her from the porch, his hat low, arms folded, struggling with the same heavy thought that had kept him awake most of the night. What past could she be hiding that made her so afraid, yet so unbreakably strong? The ranch hands pretended to mind their own business, but their sideways glances revealed their curiosity and their suspicion. A bride bought through letters, delivered by a coach, wearing all black like a widow from a funeral, carrying only a single battered suitcase and an expression too guarded for someone starting a new life. Cole approached her slowly, boots crunching on the frostbitten ground, and for a long moment they simply stood in the cold silence, the wind pressing against them as though urging one of them to finally speak. "You said your past would make me regret bringing you here," Cole said carefully, his eyes locked onto hers. "I don't scare easy, Evelyn. Not from storms, not from men, and not from whatever you think you're carrying." Evelyn lowered her gaze, her gloved hands trembling just slightly, a rare crack in her iron composure. "That's what frightens me," she whispered, "because this isn't something you can shoot your way out of." Cole straightened at that. The only time a woman said something like that was when someone dangerous was involved. She took a deep breath, then walked toward the fencing that overlooked the endless snowy plains stretching toward the horizon, and Cole followed her. "Before I came here," she began, her voice trembling with the weight of the memory she had held down for years, "I was married." Cole felt a punch in his chest, but he kept silent, letting her continue. "Not by choice. My father owed money. A lot of it. And to save himself, he gave me to a man named Silas Blackwell." Cole's blood ran cold. Blackwell. A name he'd heard whispered more than once in saloons: lawless, merciless, a man rumored to kill with his bare hands when his gun wasn't close enough. Evelyn continued, her voice now barely above the howl of the winter wind. "He was cruel. Brutal. And after a year of living in hell, I ran." She swallowed, her hands tightening on the wooden railing. "People think I wasn't wanted. But the truth is, I was hunted." Cole stepped closer, his jaw clenched. "Is he looking for you?" Evelyn nodded, and the fear in her eyes was something Cole had never seen before, not even in dying men he'd held after cattle raids gone wrong. "He's not the type to let go. And when he finds out I've disappeared, he'll come. He always comes." Cole felt fire rise in his chest, anger throbbing through his veins like wildfire. "He won't touch you here." Evelyn shook her head desperately. "You don't understand, Cole. I didn't come here to use you as a shield. I came because I had nowhere left to run. And I thought maybe marrying a man no one dared to cross would keep me alive." She closed her eyes, her voice shattering. "But now I've put you in danger too. Cole stepped forward, placing his hands gently but firmly on her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. Evelyn, listen to me. You did not put me in danger. This ranch has seen men try to take it, break it, burn it. None of them succeeded, and your past won't be the one that does it. I don't care who this Blackwell is. If he comes for you, he'll face me. Evelyn stared at him, breath hitching. Why? Why would you risk everything for me? Cole swallowed, his voice rough. Because the moment you stepped off that coach, I stopped thinking of you as a contract. You're my wife now. Even if you didn't choose it. I choose you. Evelyn's lips parted, her eyes glistening, not with fear this time, but with something softer, something that terrified her even more, hope. But before she could speak, the sound of distant hoofbeats cut through the cold silence like a knife. Cole turned sharply, instinct screaming. The ranch hands stopped working. The horses in the corral lifted their heads, snorting anxiously. The wind seemed to hold its breath. Evelyn's face drained of color. No, she whispered. Cole reached for his gun automatically. Is it him? Evelyn didn't answer with words. She didn't need to. Over the ridge, 3 riders appeared, dark silhouettes against the pale winter sky, their coats flapping like torn wings as they galloped toward the ranch with a terrible, unwavering purpose. Cole positioned himself in front of Evelyn, teeth gritted, eyes narrowing as the riders approached. The man in the middle was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black coat and a cruel smirk carved into his face like a scar. Silas Blackwell. Cole recognized the look of a man who enjoyed the suffering of others. The kind of man who took what he wanted simply because he could. The kind Cole had spent years trying not to become. Blackwell reined in his horse a few feet away, glaring down at Cole with a predator's amusement. Harrington, he drawled. Heard you bought yourself a bride. Cole didn't move. She's my wife. And she's under my protection. Blackwell looked past him at Evelyn, who was trembling but standing her ground. Darlin', you know you can't hide from me. Evelyn's voice broke. I'm not hiding. I'm done being your prisoner. Blackwell laughed, cold and sharp. You think this rancher can save you? I own you. Cole stepped forward, rage burning like wildfire. You don't own anyone. You touch her, and I'll bury you right here in my land. A tense silence followed. Then Blackwell's hand twitched toward his gun. But Cole was faster. In a single, explosive motion, Cole drew his revolver, aiming straight at Blackwell's chest. The tension snapped like lightning. Blackwell froze, eyes narrowing. His men reached for their guns, but Cole didn't flinch. Try it, Cole said quietly, deadly calm. And none of you leave here alive. Blackwell studied him for a long moment, then slowly eased his hand away from his holster. A sneer twisted his lips. This ain't over, Harrington. She's mine. And I'll come back for her. You'll be dead if you do, Cole growled. Blackwell turned his horse sharply, his men following, snow spraying beneath their hooves as they retreated down the ridge. Evelyn collapsed to the ground the moment they were out of sight, tears streaming down her face, not from weakness, but from years of terror finally cracking open. Cole knelt beside her, pulling her into his arms as she sobbed into his coat. It's over, he whispered, though he knew it wasn't, not yet. I won't let him take you. Not now. Not ever. Evelyn clung to him, trembling with emotion. Cole, why would you fight for me like this? Cole tilted her face up gently, his voice low, steady, and certain. Because you're worth fighting for. And because somewhere between the moment you stepped off that coach, and the moment I saw fear in your eyes, you became the one thing in this world I refused to lose. Evelyn's tears softened into silent breaths as she leaned into him, her heart, which had survived fire after fire, finally finding a place that felt like shelter. The winter wind eased. The ranch grew quiet again. And for the first time in years, Evelyn felt something she thought she'd lost forever, safety, and the beginning of love.